We're going to talk about the React pop-up. So the pop-up, the purpose of the pop-up is simply to put a little menu on the screen that pops up in front of everything else and lets the user interact with, and then they can click outside or something to make it go away. So that's what we're trying to do, is to build that component. So let's do the quiz. Caroline, what's a portal?
A portal is a method in React that takes a wrapper div, and as the first argument, the second argument is the place where we are attaching that wrapper to. So it would be like the document.body.
Yep. And so what happens? Oh, so then Noah, where does a portal get rendered in the DOM?
Was gonna get rendered.
Yep.
It rendered inside a div.
No, so normally when you render a component, you'll have div, then your component, div, etc. And the component gets rendered right there in line where it is in the JSX. A portal is different. It gets transported somewhere else. It gets transported to the end of the thing, of the component you tell it to. So usually you'll put document.body in there. And then that means that the portal will get, instead of being rendered right there in line, it'll get moved down to the bottom of the body. And the reason for that is because since in HTML, since you render from top to bottom and whatever comes later shows up on top, this will guarantee that the portal gets rendered on the top of everything else. So that's the purpose of the portal, is to get things that you want to ensure are rendered on the top of everything else.
Is it like using a reference similar to so it's
No, it's not at all related to a reference. It's just taking, I put my component here in the DOM, and it actually gets rendered. I put my component here in my JSX, and it actually gets rendered over there in the HTML in the DOM. So, portal, I think, is thinking more of a transport. It's being transported from where your component sits in the JSX down into some other place, like at the bottom of the body. That's the purpose of the portal. Caroline, can you think of places where you might want to use a portal?
Somewhat, for example, in the header.
yeah.
In the header, yes. If you want to have, you click on an element in the header and you want it to have a pop up a menu.
Okay.
So that's the main place you use a portal, is if you want to have a menu pop up over something else. Just stay there until the user interacts with it and then goes away. That is the primary use case for a portal. Okay. You could do it, anything else that you want to sit on top and have go away, you could do with a portal as well. But usually the menu is the main thing.
Is it like when you click on burger icon and then it shows you about and the home page?
Yeah, it shows you a menu that comes. Well, no, it's for menus. The one we did with the app drawer is different because that slides over. The portal shows on top, just displays on top. So it'll pop up on top of this. Again, if you look at here, if I click this button right here, then I will have a menu appear up on top of everything else. Boom, up it goes on top of everything else. So that's the portal. This is the portal. It's on top of everything else.
Is it like select? No.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do for this exercise is we're going to start out with, I just got to a starting point here. and I got the layout implemented. We'll put the React code in it instead. So here I have my app. My app is just it just renders a button. It says pop up. When I click that, I'm gonna want my menu to come up. And then I have a P tag with some text. And then I have my pop up. This is what I want to have. My goal is to get this to pop up when I click that button. Boop. And then we're going to generalize it as well. And then another paragraph. That's all I'm rendering is a button, a paragraph, or pop-up, and a paragraph. Now the pop-up right now is just for illustration purposes. It's a div that with a CSS that simply puts a border around it. And then it has a UL in it. Okay, so that's all I'm doing there. So if we look at how this renders.
Isn't Tailwind built-in classes?
Pop-up's not built in.
No, I mean the menu wrapper classes.
No, I put those in they're in here.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, I created them in there. So you see all it does is it just gives a background color, a border, solid border, and so on.
Yeah.
I found that if you don't put the background color white, then you can get confused as to what's going on. You think it's not popping up, but it is. So you have to put the background color white so you can see it. Just a note, and then the menu is just to give it, just some simple styling. Okay. So here we go. Let's run it. npm run dev. Open it. And you see here it is. I've got my pop-up button at the top. I've got my paragraph in front and back, and I have my little menu here with the border on it. Okay, and the menu items inside. Okay, so that's what I'm rendering. Now my goal is to have this start out not showing. And if I click that button, then it appears. Okay, that's what I want to have happen. So let's start out by just experimenting with this and try some simple things. So my first thing that I might try to do is say, okay, let me do some props here, and I'm going to have an is open prop. And if it's open, I want to display this, and if it's not, I want it to display nothing. So let me just do like, if it's not open, then I'm just going to return null, and that means if it's not open, it displays nothing. If it is open, it displays the menu. Okay. So I do that, I go, look, it's gone because I haven't passed it, is open. So let me pass it, is open equals true. Okay, so now it's open. And if I say false, then it's gone. Okay, well, okay, I'm getting there. Let me add some state. Const is open. Set is open equals use state false. And now I'm going to pass is open in here. Boom. Okay. Now if I change the state to true, it shows. Okay, I'm getting there. Let's see. Now if I click the button on click equals, what do I want to do? I just want to set the state to is open. Set is open to toggle it to not is open. So now if I go click my button, it hides. I click it again, it shows. Okay, we're getting there.
What is inside the pop-up?
The pop-up is rendering this box right here and everything inside of it.
Did you put in it that is open, right?
Yes, didn't you see me do that? I put is open in there, and if is open is false, it renders nothing, and if is open is true, then it renders the box and the menu items. So I'm just toggling this. Okay. And here we go. So here's my pop-up. If it's not open, it renders nothing. If it is open, it renders the menu with the wrapper around it.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's look and see what's going on here. It's not bad. It I get it to show and hide like I want. That's pretty simple React. I can get it to show and hide. But the problem is that when it shows, it now pushes the paragraph down. Well, I didn't really want that. I wanted it to show up on top. And so it's pushing the paragraph down. So what am I going to do? So I can fix that by making it position absolute, right? I wonder if I want to do it this way. Let's see. If I make it position absolute, style equals position absolute, and top left 0, 0. Let me do the left 0 and top. I don't want it to be 0 or I won't be able to click the button. So I'll put it about 20 or something. Okay, let's just try that and see what happens. 20 wasn't big enough. Let's try 40. Okay, so now it comes and goes. Hey, that's pretty good. I'm done, aren't I? All right, so it looks like it works, but it won't, because if I have something else positioned absolute, or if I put this button over there, this will show up over there, here, and so it doesn't really quite track where I want it to go, and it's not quite working, but it's close. So this is giving you the idea of how to do it. So, so this is I'm close, but I'm not quite there.
You want to use position relative? And the parent is
the pop-up, so I could do that.
pop-up is absolute and the parent is relative, so it stays on the same.
No, I would use the pop-up. I'd make the pop-up relative and the other one positioned absolute relative to that, and I could do it. So that's kind of getting there. But this has problems that are described in instructions. In that if I have several of them, they won't overlap properly. It doesn't flow like we want it. The biggest issue is that I can have other things show up in front of it that I don't want to have show up in front of it. So this seems like a great solution, but there's a better way to avoid all the problems that will come up with this. And that is to use a portal. So instead of just doing this, I want to do a portal. So I'm going to put this in a portal. We call create portal. And I pass the portal, the first parameter to create portal is going to be the
Wrapper.
the thing I'm going to render, the div. And the second parameter to create portal is going to be the place I want to put it. Since I want it to draw above everything, I'm going to do dot body. Now, before I do this, I'm not saving yet. I want to go and do inspect and look at the elements. And we see how it is. I've got the pop-up. And here we go. I've got the pop-up, the paragraph. Now, if I click, you'll see that the menu div right there shows up in between. Okay, so that's where it is. That's where it's flowing, but its position is absolute, so it's drawing up on top of everything else there. Okay, so this is what happens if I click, it goes away. If I click, it comes back. See, okay. So this is how it's working right now. If I save and I do the portal, then what will happen is that div instead of rendering up here in between those two paragraphs, it renders down here at the bottom of the body. So that's all the portal did, is it took it from rendering here where it shows up in my JSX to instead rendering at the bottom of the body, right down there. That's the sole purpose of a portal, is to move your HTML or your JSX from where it showed up in your component JSX to down to the bottom of the body. So it got transported like a wormhole or a Star Trek transporter.
This
Zipped
guy
it over
did
there.
all the photos,
Okay.
it's been moved from place to place.
Yep, it's been moved from there. So the purpose for doing this is to just guarantee that no matter how the page flows or how you have your style, your CSS set up inside of your app, you're still going to get that menu to come up on top of everything and nothing will cooperate. Okay. All right. So that's cool. So we're essentially, we're done. I mean, we could say, okay, good. I'm there. I'm done. Everything works like I want it to. Okay. But there's something else I want to do now. I want to actually, let's see. There's one that is in the instructions. I have to remember. Okay.
There was something about finding like the reference point and the position too.
Position. Yep,
Oh.
exactly. Okay. Let's do that part first. Okay, before I generalize it. Okay, so right now, I just kind of guessed as to where to have it show. So I just said left 0, top 40. Well, what if my button moves around a bit? Usually when you do menus like this, like here, I pop up, I click, and I want the menu to show up right beneath the button where I click it. Okay, but if I do this here, suppose I put some more text up above this button, like I do, this is an introduction. Then what will happen is that will show up here. And that means my button moves down and, oh, come on. Why when I want to set is open defaults. Oh. You know what? I forgot to put never mind. Okay, good. Okay, so now my my button has moved down a little bit. If I click, I'm still going to get the pop-up to show up at the top. And in this case, it's unfortunate because it shows up right over the top of my button. And that's, so it moved. So I want this menu to position itself relative to the button. How do you figure out where the button is that I want to position it next to? That's a challenge. So in React, we can actually use a reference, a use ref, in order to get a handle to that button, and then we can look at the button's position on the page. The React doesn't, without using use ref, it's hard to figure out where a component is going to be on the page to get its absolute coordinates for where it is on the page. So usually you use ref and then you examine the DOM elements X and Y position. So that's what we're going to do now. I gave you some code here that will help write that. So I can just, let me do that, copy that. First of all, I want to position next to this button right here. So I'm going to do a ref. And I'm going to create a ref, button ref equals use ref. And it's going to be an HTML button since I'm putting it on the button element, null.
This is where the example when you can use it.
So there's the button ref. And now I'm going to put here, I want to pass that reference in. And so I want to say, I called it position 2 because I couldn't think of a better name. So I'm going to pass it in as the button ref.current. I'm going to pass in here. And then I'm going to add this position 2 here, and it's going to be an HTML element that I'm being passed. Optional. What happened? Why is it complaining? Oh, so sorry, not optional. Optional is not good enough. It has to be HTML element or null. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I'm gonna, instead of positioning it at left and top at, make up these numbers, I'm going to do some calculations. And I'm gonna position it here at the left and the top that I've computed. So let's look, and then you'll see that the shortcut, of course, is to just leave those off. And you'll see that, whoops, R, I have to get the R const R equals position 2 dot. How do you tell where it is? It's a bounding rectangle, isn't that? Get bounding client rectangle. There we go. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Just let me check the position.
That was the right one that
That's
you
right.
used.
And there it is right there. Okay, good. Okay, so now let's look at this code for a second. I'm going to get the position and get this elements bounding rectangle. The question mark says, of course, if it's null and not there, then this is going to be null. So then I'm going to get its bounding rectangle, and I'm going to put the top of it at the top plus the height. That will put the top of my pop-up at the bottom,
the rectangle.
at the bottom of the button. My menu will now, its top will now be the bottom of the button. And its left will be, its left will be the right edge. So I'm going to try and position it so it comes up at the right corner, bottom right corner. And that choice is kind of arbitrary. You can figure out, you can decide how you want your UI to be, but that's what I did. And then I said, if there's no position to it all, I'm just going to put it in the middle of the screen, 50%, 50%. Okay. So here we go. And then I'm positioning absolute at that top left. So now if I go click my button, pop up, it should show up at this, starting at this lower right corner. That was my goal. My math is right, that'll work out. And well,
It's not in the middle of the page.
oh, I said width over 2. I said width over 2. Some people prefer to have it at the width. Just depends on where you prefer, or the left. I've had some people tell me they want it at the left, which is what this one does. This one goes right directly underneath it. So you can kind of make your choice as to where you want it to be. I kind of like the width over 2. Because I felt like it looked good. Okay.
The thing is, so it's not the middle of the page, it's the.
No, it's right. It's positioned itself relative to this button, right?
Relative to that one, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
And 50%, when you put 50% like the middle of the pop-up.
So if I don't pass in a position 2 element, it's going to go up the middle of the page, 50%.
Uh-huh.
So that was why I put that there. So if I go back, so this code here says, if there is no R, then give it 50%, 50%. And that was just to make, handle the case where sometimes I might be passed, might not be passed.
The rectangle
The position 2. So if I get rid of this, cut that out, and then go back and look at it, it's going to be in the middle of the page.
So the R rectangle stands for the whole document, or?
No, R here, see R position 2.
Oh, position.
Position 2 is the element that the ref is on. So I used the ref to get this button. So position 2 is this button. So now my R is getting the client rectangle for that button. So I'm getting the client rectangle for that button. So I'm figuring out where that button is on the page. And then I'm positioning my menu to be at the bottom of the button. It's going to be at the bottom and halfway to the right, right in the middle. So that's where I'm going to position. But you can kind of decide, what it is you like and exactly where you want by changing this calculation.
And you
Okay.
put it at the, so this one, it says if there's a button, position it R top plus R high.
Yep. It says if you've given me a component, an element to position to, I'm going to put it at the bottom and halfway through the bottom middle, like this bottom middle, just like that. I click, it goes away. I click, it comes back. Click, it goes away. Okay. So that's cool. Now, there's one other thing I want to be able to do. I want, if I click outside of the menu, I want it to go away. So how am I going to do that?
Focus or something?
Any ideas?
Remove the focus.
Is it possible to wrap it in a somehow use the dialogue methods on this, or no, that would not.
You could. There's an easier way. But you might be able to do that. And I don't actually, a dialogue does not go away if you click outside of it.
Yeah.
So you'd have to you still have to detect clicks outside of it to make it go away.
So if you click.
So yeah, so the way that that is often done. So sometimes you'll see menus. I don't know where a good example is. But sometimes you'll see menus when you click them, the rest of the page dims and you can't click on it. And so you put these pop-ups up. So if you want the pop-up to completely obliterate the page and make it so you don't get distracted by all the stuff underneath it, then the way that is done is underneath the, let's see, you want to do it in front of. So what I want to do is I want to take, I have this, I want to render a rectangle that covers the entire page. I want to take a rectangle that covers the entire page, is on top of everything on the page, and then I'm going to put the menu on top of that. And this rectangle I put here is going to be like semi-transparent so that it kind of grays out what's behind it and allows somebody to focus right on the menu itself. So I'm going to give it some opacity. I'm going to have it cover the whole page, and I'm going to give it some opacity. I'm going to put it behind this menu, but in front of that. Okay, so if I want to put that in my element in the page, I have right here my menu, means I'm going to want to put, here's my page, and here's my menu. So I'm going to put this rectangle right here above the menu code. So I want it to go right here. So it's going to be in the portal. So it comes outside of the flow, renders here, and I'm going to put it right there above this guy. Okay, so that will put it in between the two. All right, so I want to put a div here, but of course I can't because why? What's the error?
Because we have multiple parents.
I have multiple top level elements, so I have to do that to get my syntax checker happy. And then I don't want to do that. I'm just going to do a slash. And I have some CSS for this. I call it the shade, pop-up shade. I'm just going to give it the class pop-up shade, and I'll show you that CSS in a minute.
So it's you can use div as self-closing?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Okay, here we go. And now if I do it, I've got it there. Oh, where's my opacity? Oh, I remember. I changed this code to make the opacity be dynamic. So I'm going to do opacity, what, 0.1?
Yeah.
There we go. That's better. So now if I, now it's nice and covering everything. I can't click on anything now at all. Nothing happens because I've got that div in the middle that I'm clicking on. And finally, all right. No, let me go over the CSS for this. So this shade, I put a position fixed at the top left. I'm going to put it start at the top left, and it's going to be full width and full height. Background color black, and it takes all pointer events and hides them. So it keeps them from propagating through. So this just captures all pointer events, and so that nothing behind it will work. And that's what that CSS is. So I've got this here and it looks nice, but now I need to figure out how to get it so when I click out here in that shade that everything disappears. So boom, boom. So the only way I can get the menu to disappear is this component can't modify the is open state in the parent. How do you get state in the parent to get modified?
It was a state setter.
Right, but how does a child get something in its parent to get changed?
Through the props, create a new prop.
Get prop
And it's going to be
it is like a function.
on close. Yep, going to be a function. We call this an event handler. So I'm going to do on close here. And when I get told that somebody clicked outside and I want it to close, what am I going to do?
So,
Is open to false, so it will close. Okay. So now if I click outside of here, why didn't it work? Because I forgot to pay attention to that on close here. And where do I want to have on close happen? If they click on this button, then I want to have on close happen, right? Clear enough? No question? So if they click on the shade, I want the on close to fire. When the on close fires, then the parent sets its is open state to false, which will cause my menu to go away, the whole thing. So now if I click out here, it all goes away. So click there, it comes up, click outside, it goes away. Okay. Any questions on how that works?
also is open acts as on click
No, is open is the state in the app that
because
determines whether or not I want to show the menu.
if you go to the pop-up, you go to the app, sorry. So if you go to the app, this is the app.
Yeah.
So you pass it, you go.
Is open is the state that determines whether or not that pop-up menu displays.
So if you
So
go-
if I set is open to false, then
You send
the
it.
pop-up will get a false here and it will go away. It will
So
stop
You
displaying.
go to the pop-up, click on the app.
If is open is false, I return nothing. The whole thing goes away.
Yeah,
Okay.
it acts like a.
All right, it acts like state. All right. So actually I said HTML element or null. I could actually, I realized, replace it with React Node. That didn't work. That did not work. I wonder why I imported React Node here. Anyway, let me look at what the actual solution was. HTML element or null, it was what it was. Okay, oh, I also made it optional. Okay, all right, I'm not sure why I have React Node there.
So you have some children pass through, doesn't it?
Children. Yes, that's
Oh.
when I do the. Let's do the children quickly. I don't like having to have this whole menu thing hard coded in here. I want this to make it generalizable and usable elsewhere. I want to move this into the parent. So I'm going to want to delete this and replace it with children. And I have to put children in here. It's children, it's a React node. Now I remember why I have to have that. And now I'm going to, in my pop-up, instead of it being self-closing, I'm going to close it and I'm going to paste in my menu. Okay, so now this menu is passed as a child to, it's passed in the children to the pop-up. And so the pop-up gets the children and renders them right here. Okay, inside of the menu wrapper. So
And
here-
this is what makes it dynamic. Oh, sorry to interrupt. I just had a quick question.
Yes,
Oh.
exactly. It's what makes it dynamic so I can, and generalizable so I can use it anywhere. I can use this pop-up for any type of menu I want. See, it still works. And now I can use it here like this. I could do another one somewhere else. I can change it instead of menu item 1. Let me do DDD and do selection item 1. So
I
now,
was wondering,
boom. Okay. You're wondering what?
how this pop-up component knows that this will be the children of the pop-up component because why, how does it know that this will be the children prop?
Okay. The way React works is if you make a component and you give it children, which means you put JSX in between the closing tag and the opening tag and the closing tag. So if I put JSX in here between the opening tag and the closing tag, then these things get passed as the children to this component. Okay, so it's exactly the same way it did in the previous exercise. So everything that is between the opening and the closing tags gets wrapped up and passed as the children. Whoops, I should have selected to there. I meant to do that. Everything in between the opening and the closing gets wrapped up and passed as the children prop to the pop-up. Got that?
Yes, got it now. Thank you.
Okay,
Much.
that's how children works in React. All right, I'm not sure there's anything else that needs to be covered in this exercise. Are there questions?
Does the prop specifically have to be called children?
It must be named children. That is required. If I put it as my stuff and my stuff, my stuff, my stuff, then I come over here, then this complains and it says property children does not exist on props. Okay, so it must be named children. That is a React requirement. It must be named children. And if you want children to be a Boolean for some reason you had maybe a count, a number, maybe you were writing a component where you wanted to pass in the number of children that somebody has, and you make it a number, well, you just screwed up. Because now React, it gets all confused and it says, wait a minute, an element, so it thinks this is children, and it tries to create these as children and pass it to the children prop, but it says it's type number, so it doesn't work there. So children is a reserved prop that must be used for this case, and it must be named children, and it must be typed as a React node. So children, there's several props that get special treatment in React. Children, key. I'm sure there's a couple of others, but I can't remember what they are. Okay.
Do they like call it React node because we have like an array of?
No, it's called a React node because each of these things with the angle brackets is called a node. And it's a React node, which means that I'm using React in order to create them. That's just the data type that React called. All right. Any other questions on this exercise?
I'm gonna watch.
Silence. Crickets. Crickets. Either that's really, really good or it's terrible. So I'm hoping that's really good and that you got a reasonable understanding of what's going on here. So I'm going to stop the recording.